Welcome to So Everyone Can. I'm Mitch McCartney.
I'm Keellia Guevara.
I'm Tanner Downs.
So I am sitting here in the air conditioning of my townhome, looking outside, and it is sizzling hot outside. It's like 105 in the shade.
And that's an understatement. It's hot.
You could fry an egg on the sidewalk right now, and I keep thinking about how fortunate I am to be indoors, because there's a lot of folks who do not have that luxury today. Then they may be outside because they have an outside job, and God bless those folks. They may be outside for a variety of reasons. Some people don't have anywhere else to go. And we see folks like that all the time, and I think we just become numb to it because we drive past them on the freeway off ramps, or past them. They're standing in the median of the road, or they're perhaps sitting in the park just trying to find some shade, and we just kind of, I don't know about you, when I grew up in a small rural town. Homelessness was something that happened off in the big city. It's nothing that we really paid much attention to. And then when I moved to the city and saw it up close, it impacted me. But then, like everybody else, I kind of fell into that rhythm, and you start to unsee it, right? You don't really think about it as much as we should. And so, we're living in a society now where this is a problem that's only becoming exacerbated by the pandemic, the economy, rising housing prices. As prices of housing goes up, the house sale prices, rents will go up as well. So we had a homelessness problem before the pandemic, and you think about what it's turning into now, and what kind of response agencies like Heartland Family Service and our brothers and sisters out there that do the type of work that we do, how do we respond to this?
Mm-hmm. And it's so complex. And I think you're right, Mitch. It kind of becomes part of the landscape, right? Part of what you see and drive by or know is out there, but you don't feel like it's necessarily um, part of yours to solve, or yours to care about, or that you're connected to that problem and the um, real crisis that we're having in the metro around affordable housing. And to understand what we do at Heartland and how we work with these folks who are experiencing incredible complex traumas, and the complexities of homelessness. I mean, it's immense.
No, that's a great point, Keelia. Complexities of homelessness, and I'm really excited to hear what Nick has to say about that specifically, because I'm sure their homelessness is super complex, but I don't think I have anywhere near the idea that I should, especially working at Heartland, how complex homelessness is. And with that being said, you need an all hands on deck effort to help solve the problem of homelessness or work to solve homelessness. And it's so much easier to just, like Mitch was saying, just drive by and just kind of, accept it, or, that's their problem. I can't solve that. That's too big of a problem. But if you get everyone together, it can be solved. And I think it's easy to look at people in those situations as not people, and they are humans, and they're not there, from my understanding, by choice. In many situations there's so many factors that you know bring them to that situation, and it's sad and it's fortunate, and it's such a big problem, and there's so many different reasons behind it. But it'll be interesting to see what Nick has to say, and if he can kind of explain that a little further.
Yeah, so we're talking about Nick Bundy, and Nick Bundy is a program coordinator with our homeless support services. Nick oversees a number of programs, but one of the programs he oversees is a street outreach program. And I'm really excited to hear more about this from Nick, because one of the things that I really value about the mission and the culture of Heartland Family Service is going out and meeting people where they are. So we're going to be talking with Nick Bundy in just a moment. Keely's got an interview with him coming up, and we will be right back after this message.
There is still time to gather your foursome together to support a new dawn for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. Join us on Friday, August 27th, along with our presenting sponsors, Pinnacle Bank and Arby's Panda Incorporated, to help drive out domestic violence and sexual assault at our 28th annual Safe Haven Golf Tournament at the Eagle Hills Golf Course in Papillion, Nebraska. Tea time will be at 8 a.m. Proceeds will benefit the Heartland Family Service Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Program, including the Safe Haven Concealed Emergency Shelter to protect women, men, and children from violence. Teams of 4 can register for just $500. For more information, go to heartlandfamilyservice.org and click on Events in the upper right-hand corner. Please join us in being a part of this year's Safe Haven Golf Tournament. Let's teach individuals how to create a safe home so everyone can.
We're so happy to have Nick Bundy here today with us. Nick is one of the coordinators in our housing and support services programs, and he oversees many different teams, and he's going to be sharing with us today some of the dynamic work that he does in the community and supports his teams to do, supporting folks who are experiencing housing scarcity, and they make such a huge impact in the community. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
So, Nick, we want to dive in with starting to walk us through what we all kind of know are the Lifetime movie example of someone who experiences housing insecurity or moments of homelessness. And we know that that's not generally the case at all, and that there's lots of factors that go into individuals, families, children experiencing housing insecurity. So can you kind of walk us through what you have learned and who you see and who you serve, and help us to understand better in actual more in a more factual way what leads to the experience of homelessness?
Yeah, no, I think you touched on it well. I think, as far as reasons for, becoming homeless or losing housing, I think they are, as varying as the people. There's as many different reasons as there are people experiencing homelessness. Generally, when we think about people in our community who are currently experiencing homelessness, I think, personally, there's a lot of, it comes down to a lot of trauma. It comes down to a lot of mental health concerns, substance use concerns, also, systems issues as well. I think we all know right now there's absolutely an affordable housing shortage in our community, and I think nationwide. There are a lot of factors. I think typically when I meet with people who are currently experiencing homelessness, there tends to never be one reason. There's a multitude of reasons, and all of those things, sort of compounding on each other to create that situation.
Yeah. And I think there's also this complexity, right? It's never, as you said, like it's never one reason. It's like a complex layering of problems. And I hope that we're getting to a place where there's more of a sense of dignity from the outside looking in, and we're getting away from this idea that it's your fault, or if you just wanted to work harder, you could afford or keep an apartment. Because I know, when I was growing up, that was definitely a major thought, right? Was like, if you just wanted it enough, then you could stay healthy, you could stay employed, like get a job and get a place to live.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like unfortunately I know is the sentiment from a lot of people. And I know that when we think about like we said, those reasons why people become homeless, there's a significant amount of barriers and to people becoming homeless. So some of those larger ones, kind of like I touched on earlier, whether it be mental health concerns, substance use concerns, trauma, housing instability in the community. There's also a lot of other issues that I think are often overlooked as far as if we think about someone who is currently street homeless, they may have lack of access to transportation, they may have lack of access to communication. They may have, just the simple things of getting to an appointment, knowing who to reach out to as well. Especially for people maybe who may be first time homeless, which we've seen a lot in the last year and a half because of the COVID pandemic. People becoming homeless the first time, they've never had to access these systems before. They don't know where to turn.
So talk to us a little bit, Nick, about what you have seen during the pandemic and what you'd like the community to understand about the housing crisis really that we're facing right now in our service area and how that's impacted folks throughout this pandemic season.
Yeah, I think like I touched on earlier, I think within our community, absolutely there is an affordable housing shortage. And so, apartments that we used to see that may have been, $500-600 a year and a half, 2 years ago are now $800-900. And when we think about people who are obviously experiencing homelessness are either on a very fixed or sometimes no income. And so we think about people who may be, let's say, on a fixed income on Social Security. Those aren't increasing, right? Those rates are not increasing at the rate that housing costs are. And we've also seen a lot of, like I touched on earlier, a lot of people who are first time homeless. So, unfortunately, during the last year and a half with the pandemic, we've seen a large influx starting in our homeless prevention side. So people who are becoming close to losing homelessness. And then after that, we had seen, a month or two later, a large influx in street outreach, unfortunately, because people were losing housing. And unfortunately, I sort of foresee it worsening a little bit towards the end of this month with the eviction moratorium ending as well. I sort of expect to see another influx. So I think when I'm thinking of things that I would like the community to kind of understand about what we do is that complexity is a lot of times, especially with street outreach, we engage with a lot of people very frequently, but unfortunately we don't necessarily have the resources just to get someone housed. And I think a lot of times there is that frustration from the community as well, as we're seeing all these people and, hey, we're calling you, why isn't the issue fixed, right? So I think that's one thing I would like the community to, at large to know is we're out there every day meeting with these people and making sure that they're at a very minimum, that their basic needs are taken care of, that their mental health needs are taken care of, that we are engaging in effective case management to find these safe and affordable housing options for them, which unfortunately is a process. It can take, again, it's totally dependent on the client situation, but it can take 6 months or more to find housing starting from that ground level, because as street outreach, we are the first people that clients are typically engaging with in the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think about just how long it takes anybody to find, either if you're renting an apartment or you want to buy a home. I mean, it's a process. And so if someone is first time homeless and you're engaging with them, there's so many systems and like checkpoints that they have to go through before they can even access anything. So I'm glad that you touched on that. I feel like the street outreach program is so unique. Would you talk to us, Nick, about, I don't think there's probably a typical day, but what that work looks like and where you engage with people? And you mentioned, making sure basic needs are met and making sure mental health needs are being met. Can you explain to us more? Like, what does that look like? Tell us that story.
Sure. So when I think about the street outreach team, what I appreciate it probably the most is that it really is a community effort. So it's not just Heartland. We do not work, siloed within our agency, within our department. We work very closely with what we call the MATCH, so the Metro Area Continuum of Care for the Homeless outreach team. So that includes agencies like Community Alliance, Together Inc., the VA, all of the shelters, and other providers, including domestic violence advocates, sex trafficking advocates. So we really try to take that holistic approach, because it's a community issue and it's going to take a community to solve it. It's not something we can just do within Heartland Family Services, not something that any individual agency or service provider, I think, can tackle on their own. And so I really appreciate that. We take that community focused approach, and we also, again, we take our work to the clients. We'll meet you where you're at, both literally and wherever you're at, right? So again, taking into account sort of that trauma-informed approach that we take at the agency, understanding that the people that we're meeting with out on the streets, the vast majority of them have experienced significant trauma. And it's a trauma being street homeless, even if you haven't experienced any other prior trauma. That it's a trauma in and of itself, and it can contribute to a lot of mental health, substance use concerns, which makes it harder to, obviously, to get housing in the long run. And so a typical day, I mean, that's hard to say, right? But we do go out in the community. Someone is out in the community 5 days a week on outreach. We typically split that up between the morning and afternoon and evening. So we have a day where we go out in the evenings. We have a day where we go out in the mornings, and days when we go out, in the afternoon, and kind of try to capture, as many people as possible. And really what they're out there doing is providing connections to housing resources, providing connections to mental health resources, and offering case management resources. So taking this person that we met with just on one of our street outreach times and saying, okay, I'm going to work with you. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know what the road's going to look like, right? But I will be here to walk with you alongside with you on this journey, whatever that may be. And so I think that's kind of the biggest strength of our outreach program that we have.
I always think about our street outreach work. The word dignity comes to mind.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, that dignity, I mean, is that huge piece. Is there's a lot of shame, right, associated with being homeless. Community stigma associated with mental health and substance use concerns, and unfortunately, inherently with being a service provider, a case manager, a therapist, there's inherently some sort of power imbalance, and it's sort of my approach, and I think the whole outreach team's approach to reduce that imbalance wherever we can. So again, like you said, that we can work collaboratively. It is very client-led. What do you need? Because we can take the approach of, here's what I know what you need, here's what I think you need to be stable and be housing, to get into stable housing. But it doesn't always work out that way. And what we think the client needs is not always what the client needs. And so working collaboratively, so we take their needs into account, and also our expertise, and here's maybe where we can point you to meet some of those needs.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about the temperature outside, and I don't know when this will air, but currently we're at like our 5th day in a row of near 100-degree temperatures. Tomorrow it's supposed to be 105. What's the response? What do I think about mobilizing. I think about connecting people who want to do something to the people who need something done. And what kind of response, does the team take in these extreme heats? What's happening in the community?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, there's always going to be more need, especially on these hot days, and conversely in the winter time when it's below freezing. As far as what we do, we take that community focused approach. So we work with other service providers to set up cooling centers and warming centers in the winter. So Salvation Army, there's a place in South Omaha called Generation Diamond that hosts a cooling center. And then we really just get out there and focus on making sure that we have obviously supplies for the weather. So this time of year, we're making sure we have tons of water and bug spray and sunscreen, anything like that, to make sure that people are going to be okay while they're outside. And then again, pointing them to those cooling centers or warming centers in the winter time. And we try to be as proactive as we can and get out there as much as we can. it's difficult. There's always a balance, but there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
But we definitely on days like this, we're out there, going to camps, going to locations where we know the most people are going to be, and trying to get them as many resources as we can.
Yeah. Like what you said in the beginning of that answer, right? There's always going to be more needs. There's only so many hours of the day, and understanding what you can do in the short term and then in the long term. I hope that this interview today helps our listeners and our audience really understand the way that affordable housing connects to the health and well-being of the whole community, and how important it is for everyone to recognize that they are tied to that. This is where we collectively live together. And if there are not places that are safe and inhabitable and affordable, then that truly is affecting everyone, whether you have a home that you love or you're currently, experiencing homelessness. So I hope that this can serve as some motivation and call to action to understand how we're all connected in that, and to raise awareness of this issue, and start to get some curiosity of how do we change those things? How do we change the housing system that we have here in the metro to make it work truly for everyone? So I just appreciate your time so much, Nick. Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for the leadership for your teams, and that beautiful space that you create for so many folks in this community. You're just an excellent asset to our company, so that's great for us. But
Oh,
really great for the client.
thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Keeley. I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about what we do. And like you said, it's a community effort. We're all part of this community, and so it is everyone's problem to tackle, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about it. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick.
We're back on So Everyone Can. And Keellia, that was a great conversation with Nick. One of the things that really impacted me when he said is, look, this is a community problem. It's going to take a community to solve it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Mitch. I was really inspired just to see the dedication of our staff. And I know that working through this pandemic has taken a big toll on the folks who are working so closely with the clients. So I'm happy to be here today to lead us in a mindfulness practice. We're going to do a body scan together, and this is a way to center yourself out of your head and out of your thinking and more into your body. So with our body scan that we'll do today, anyone that's listening, please do not do this while you're driving, okay? If you're driving, turn the podcast off. You can do this when you get home. There's no magical way to sit to do a body scan. You can lay down, you can do it while standing up, you can be seated, you can, just kind of check in and see what would be most comfortable for you right now. So begin by just letting your eyes go closed. If that is something that is not comfortable for you, please keep your eyes open and just find a neutral thing to focus on. You can look out the window, you can stare at your favorite, spot on the carpet, whatever. Just something that's not gonna spark your brain. Don't look at your planner or your phone. So once you've gotten your eyes closed and you're relaxing a little bit, that sense of visual input, just letting that kind of power down for a minute. I invite you to take a big breath, maybe the biggest breath that you've taken today. And you're not, competing or winning any awards for the largest breath. Just give yourself a little nourishment. Maybe repeating that a couple times, just taking a few big deep breaths. Noticing any sounds that might be around you. Noticing the weather of the mind. There's a lot of activity happening up there today. Thunderstorms, a hurricane. Is everything just melting in the heat? Starting to notice all of these different things that are happening at the same time all around you. But our conscious mind is usually not focusing on anything in particular. We're usually thinking about the task we're engaged in, or in one of our automatic thinking processes or storylines that we like to revisit. It's a really good practice just to notice what you're thinking about, notice what you're hearing, notice what you're looking at if your eyes are open. And we'll drop our awareness down into our feet, starting with the soles of the left foot and the soles of the right foot. I'm trying to let the mind just focus softly there. Again, just noticing. Is it a pleasant sensation in your feet today? Is it a negative sensation? Are your feet unhappy with your choice of footwear? Maybe your feet feel neutral. There's no right or wrong answer. It's simply a moment of awareness. Coming up the left leg, the calf muscle and the shin bone, the right calf muscle and the right shin, the left knee and the right knee, and the big muscles of the left leg and the big muscles of the right leg. Noticing tension, and seeing if you can soften that tension. Be noticing weariness and seeing if you can just take a deep breath and offer some comfort to your own self. Coming up to the hips and the lower back, the abdomen. There's nothing that needs to change. There's nothing inherently wrong in your body. You're just observing. Coming up to the mid back and the belly. Noticing, are you hungry? Did you have a great lunch and now your stomach's talking to you? Is your chair bothering your back today? There's room to accept all of those things without trying to change anything. Just letting them be and just noticing them. Coming up to the chest and the upper back and the shoulder blades. Tops of the shoulders. The left shoulder joint and bicep, elbow, forearm. Left wrist and hand and fingers. the right shoulder joint, bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, hand, and fingers. Coming up to the throat, the back of the neck, the muscles of the jaw, tip of the nose, corners of the eyes, the temples, the ears and the back of the head, the top of the head and the forehead. Noticing any tension, negative, pleasant, or neutral sensations. And then bringing your awareness to your whole body as if you're looking back at yourself. Your whole body functioning, breathing and digesting, all the muscles and circulatory system, everything happening all at the same time. Offering some appreciation this moment, just as it is. And then returning to the sense of hearing. What do you hear around you? What do you hear in the room or outside of the room? Returning to the mind, the weather in the mind. Noticing if there has been a shift. Again, there's no good or bad. The mind thinks it's what it does. So if it's been chatting this whole time, it's all good. Maybe returning then to that deep breath and allowing one or two more deep breaths to close your mindfulness moment today. When you're ready, blinking your eyes back open. And I thank you for your practice.
Thanks for sharing that, Keellia. Appreciate that. Thanks so much. And that is going to wrap up our episode of So Everyone Can today. So Everyone Can is a podcast of Heartland Family Service. You can find out more about our agency at heartlandfamilyservice.org or at soeveryonecan.org. Take care and be well.